Hi, I'm David with Clarksville Guns and Archery, and today I have a very wonderful video for all of you, something I've been waiting to do for some time. I just couldn't get my hands on one. I'm not going to waste any time. What you see before me is what we're doing video on. So for those that don't know what this is the Steyr AUG, or as it's known in the Austrian military as the Sturmgewehr 77. And the reason it's called the Sturmgewehr 77 is because it came out in 1977. So before I get into this, just to please all the tactical people at home that are worrying about this thing not being loaded, let's go ahead and do a function check on it and make sure we're clear. Okay. As we can see from the ejection port, we are clear. Nothing's going to go off and it's going to hurt me. No one's going to get shot, and you at home are safe, even though you're probably miles away from the camera. So, to get this thing started, let's talk about some quirks about this. For those that have never messed with a rifle like this before, this is what you call a bullpup rifle. That means that while this looks like a short barrel, this barrel is actually 16 inches. The barrel ends somewhere back in here. Your ejection port goes back here. That's where your mag goes in at. It's also where your rounds will come out at. What's cool about these rifles is they can actually be swapped. So if you look right here, you have a warning label that indicates, gives you instructions on how to swap sides, and if you're going to swap it, you're going to have brass coming out the other way. But you can swap them out on both ends. While I will not take this firearm completely apart because YouTube overlords will shut us down, it comes apart extremely easily. In fact, something I'm going to kind of show you that you might have known, or maybe you didn't know, is how easy it is to take this barrel out. Ready? Look at that. It just came apart. From here, you would take the firearm completely apart and the trigger pack would be located back here. Those of you that know what this is, that have never seen this before, you might have heard lots of stories, anyone that was ever in the military that ever trained with any Austrians or even Australians, because they use it as well, might have had some trigger time on this firearm. And it's an interesting history. In the 70s, when these firearms came out, no one really had seen anything like this. It was kind of really new at the time. For anyone that remembers the movie Die Hard, there's that famous scene where Carl's putting the barrel into the gun and locks in like that before he goes to try to shoot John McClane. I believe that's the first time anyone ever saw this on in big screen. And of course, anyone that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s remembers a game called Counter-Strike, and this, of course, is one of the firearms that was featured in that video game.
David, tell them why the barrel swaps.
Why it swaps? Because when they designed this firearm, while it was meant to be a rifle, they also designed it as a machine gun as well. So the machine gun variant looks exactly the same. The difference is, instead of getting a 30-round magazine, it would have been a 42-round magazine, and the barrel would have come out about to here. It's a roughly 26-inch barrel-ish, give or take a little bit. That also came with a bipod. For those of you that have never shot a machine gun before, barrels get hot and they can get warped, and then all of a sudden you have a bad barrel. So what you would do is, oh look, we just run a hill and pop, 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 pop. Oh man, we got to change barrels real quick because it's too hot. You know, Carl, grab me the spare barrel. Quick, we're under fire. And then I can continue the operations. You can do it with most machine guns, but most of them aren't quite that fast, or they didn't used to be. I'm sure that times have changed then. Another cool little thing for those of you that have messed with this before is the bolt itself actually folds. And that's important because as I go to store this thing, if I smack it against something, it's not going to break my charging handle. That's something they thought of ahead of time. And also, this little piece right here pulls out and goes up, also for storage. Some people say you can use it as kind of a hand guard. I personally wouldn't because my hand's too close to the barrel, but your mileage might vary. You can if you'd like to. There's tons of aftermarket support for these firearms. It's not easy to get as going to a gun store, but they are out there and you can find them. And there's just so many upgrades you can do these things. The one thing that's kind of a downer for a lot of people is the trigger. Again, if you notice right here, everyone kind of pulls it with me. That's really creepy. And what I mean by that is you got to kind of pull it hard, and then there's a little bit of a creak to it, if you will, and then all of a sudden it breaks. For semi-automatic purposes, that does kind of throw you off. You can get used to it, but it's something to be aware of before you buy a firearm like this. And almost every bullpup design has that problem with that trigger, and that's simply because as I'm pulling this, there's a mechanism going all the way back to where my trigger pack is. So that's unfortunate, but that is part of the issues with most bullpups. Last thing to talk about is, as you're seeing this current configuration, This is the A3 variant. The original variant, some of you might remember, had this long tube-like scope on it. It's actually a 1.5 power scope. It also doubled up as a carry handle of sorts. They have since removed that. What they found is that actually causes a lot of problems with eye relief because such a short magnification and such a long tube can be an issue. They still make a version of it that's a 3 power that you can purchase, which essentially what would happen is this whole rail comes off and you can put that down as you'd like. Or if you didn't like that and you just like the gun but not the optic, put whatever you want on top of it. While this does look left-handed or right-handed friendly, and it truly is because it's not really ambidextrous, if you want to make it left-handed, you can actually take the bolt and put it on this side. There's a whole exchange kit for that and how to do it. Of course, this piece does come off as well. But the other really cool thing about this is at the time this came out, this is one of the first firearms that you could adjust your gas system with, and your average soldier could do it. Now, the FAL did have that, to be fair, but it wasn't standard practice at the time. So this is one of the first times for a 5.56 at least, you could do that too. Kind of turn a little bit so you guys can see it. Make your adjustments up here as needed. And just a little bit of a tidbit of info for those who've never shot it. Again, it is a little overgassed. They do that on purpose. That does help with ejection issues. But if you had a suppressor on it and you wanted to tighten it down and make it so you don't have as much gas in your face, that's the way to do it. This is a really cool gun. It's a really fun gun. It's not for everybody, but it's worth at least checking out once in your life. So come on down, check us out, play with it, fall in love, take it home.